The clock and date tells me it's time for a live show. So I thought I'd do a live show. How is everybody? Almost got in here a little late. Almost. I was eating some popcorn. And I was like, I better do some flossing and stuff because my teeth, the way they are, the kernels tend to stick in places. So I had to do a little flossing before we started the live show tonight. Didn't want anything to be spitting out or anything. I know I'm grossing everybody out right about now, but that's okay. Hope all of you are doing well. It was a stormy day in Clearwater. I even took some video of it. Some of the most spectacular, I don't know about lightning, being that it's daytime, it's a little hard to tell, but some of the most spectacular thunder that I've heard in a while. Just continuous rumble, 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 grumble, grumble, rumble, rumble, grumble, grumble, rumble. As I was telling my dad, it sounded like God, if you believe in that type of thing, was throwing all of his furniture down the stairs. That's kind of what it sounded like. So, and I got some of it on video and I posted it to my private Facebook page. So if you are friends with me on Facebook, you can see that it's like 3 minutes and I did get some lightning strikes. So it was pretty cool. Of course, I have to remind everyone, as you are watching tonight, or if you are watching this in the replay, do not forget to give this video the thumbs up. Please do. And as you're watching, or once again, if in the rerun, just find that little button on your device and give us the thumbs up on it so we can play nice with the YouTube algorithms. And that's about it. Let's see who's in here. Valerie is number one. In fact, Valerie was in here very, very early. Hello, Dee. Hello, Karen. Charlotte. Paula. Yes, Paula, it really is Wednesday. CR. Hello, CR. Jasmine. K-Dog. Hello, all. Hope all of you are fine this beautiful night. It is, it's turned into a beautiful night here in Clearwater, like I said, after a afternoon of thunder and lightning, and it's pretty common for this time of year. Becky is saying hello from, is that Kylene or Colleen, Texas? Kathy, good to see you. Louise, hope you're doing well. Louise, I think we missed you last week. For some reason, I think that we did not see you last week. And Louise, I'm guessing maybe, are you recovering from the England's loss to Italy in, what do they call that? The Euro Cup or UEFA, whatever it is. I did watch it. And Louise, I have to tell you, it seemed to me like England got outplayed. I know they were leading 1-0 and everything, but it certainly did seem like Italy controlled the action in that match. And even though it did go to shootouts, which I still think as an American is still weird, it did seem like the better team in the end. Ended up winning. Just me and Eric, an American. My opinion on it, but I did watch it. In fact, I watched, that was on Sunday. On Saturday, I watched Argentina and Brazil, and that was pretty good too. Hello, Eric. Just getting off work, so we'll have to watch while driving home. Well, keep your eyes on the road, Eric. Yes, I meant listen, but anyway, okay, yeah. Ears on this live show, eyes on the road. I would say that devoting 75% of your brain to traveling and 25% to the live show probably is a pretty good split. Hello, Nina. the peace symbol and the butterflies. Hello, Cherie. Assistant Cherie doing the moderating tonight. Good to see you, Cherie. Louise says, I was on a birthday weekend away in Liverpool with the ladies, but yes, we lost. Okay. Well, I'm guessing then that maybe you were not watching it, didn't have it on the TV. I read, Louise, where over half the TVs in England were going to be tuned to the match. So that's quite a few people. I mean, I don't know, here in the United States, I don't think that we get anywhere near half for anything that's ever on TV. Of course, we have a lot more people here. That would have to be like 160 million people or something. But so that's what I had read, that like half the TVs would be turned to that. And it did seem to get pretty crazy there. Once again, I know a lot of people have tuned in here with the last few moments. Just want to remind all of you once again to hit the thumbs up button as you are watching this, either live while it's happening on July 14th, 2021, or if you are watching in the replay. Louise says, I was getting drunk in the pubs. Not just one pub, Louise, multiple pubs. I'm impressed. What's going on with me? Disc golf have not really played a lot. The weather has been a factor in that. I like to play when I go out and just play on my own. I like to play in the evenings, 6 o'clock, 6:30, and unfortunately, this time of year, that's when it's most likely to rain, or it rains like 4 or 5 o'clock, then everything's wet, and I'm not going out there. So I haven't had a chance to play a lot. I did play a little bit on Saturday, and then I played in the club on Sunday. Really did not play that well, to be honest, but I haven't been practicing a lot, so what are you going to do? And my next tournament isn't until the middle of August, so like another month, where I will be over in Orlando all week. So you can expect come that week that I will be doing the live show from an Airbnb that I am renting over there. But I've been practicing some putting right out here on the landing by the elevator, but that's about it. So that's really what's been going on with me regarding disc golf. Not a lot. Given the way the weather is in Florida, at least around here, that most of your tournaments are held between like September and May. And then like June, July, August slows down quite a bit, mostly because of the heat. But you can find some, but not many in this area or within driving distance. So that's really why I don't have anything going on until the middle of August. Hello, AJ. Hi, been watching your videos. Really enjoyable. Thank you. You're AJ. That's very kind of you to say that. Yeah, I think, it's interesting, AJ. I think the YouTube channel we have here is probably one of the most underreported, undervalued things that we do. I think most people think of this as an audio program, which it is, but we also have a very vibrant YouTube channel in which we are always posting things. So, and of course, this live show is going on come October. It will be 4 years since I've been doing it. So we're one of the few podcasts out there. We try to do both. We do audio and video. And that's, I think that's the best way to do it. Hello, Vicky. Hello to you. As you are watching, should you feel like monetarily contributing to the program, you can see that little square with the $sign in the middle of it. That is the super chat button. And if you do have a PayPal account, something like that attached to your YouTube account, you can monetarily contribute, and we would appreciate it. All you have to do is hit that button for that to happen. I continue to work on my diet. I will be honest. Got down this weekend to, what was it? Almost 174 pounds. But I have to admit, over the kind of the last day, I've cheated a little bit, but that's okay. I'm still like around 176, 177. And I'm not finding it very hard to maintain right in that area. But still working toward that 173 number. It's still a couple pounds away to get consistently there. But I continue to do what I've always done. No sugar, no carbs, although I've had some carbs over the last day. Not a lot, though. But it's not been that difficult. Hello, Laura. What's going on? And Vicky says, getting a lot of feedback on Shawn's podcast. Well, that's good to hear, Vicky. That's why we do it. We try to, of course, not just publicize it, but we're hoping that everybody involved is getting good feedback on it, good opinions, good insight, maybe some new information. That's why we do it. Hello, Laura. Mimi. Hello, Mimi. Everybody's slowly tuning in here. I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It's weird that this live show, many times, we have more people watching at the end than we do at the beginning. The viewership, for example, at 10:30 is higher than it is at 9:30. Who would have thunk that? But I guess it's a lot of the West Coast people tuning in, maybe even going into the next day in Australia, Hong Kong, because we do have people that do watch the live show from there. Maybe that has something to do with it. Spleen, sorry for lurking, but I have a migraine. Spleen, no need to apologize. I know a little bit about migraines. I don't get headaches, the aching or anything, but I do get aura once in a while, and it's usually brought on spleen by the weirdest of things. If I'm looking like at this computer screen, and if there is a light, like a reflection, I can see a bulb in the reflection of the screen. For some reason, that sets my mind off, and I automatically start getting that aura, like that sparkly haze in my vision, and it will continue for 10 or 15 minutes. No headaches, no physical problems or anything else, but that's what sets mine off. And so I really have to, when I'm looking at a computer screen, I really have to make sure there are no reflections of a light bulb or a TV or the sun or anything like that, because it just, I don't know why it is, but I finally figured it out. It took me a while to figure that out, of why that is. Moving on. The videos continue to come out, and analysis of this condo collapse that happened in Miami. It's been a few weeks now, and I've taken a lot of interest in it because it's just one of those things. I've always been interested in disasters, plane crashes, building collapses, dams collapsing, earthquakes. I don't know why. But if I were to recommend a site for all of you, if you want to get, I think, some very good objective reporting from somebody who knows what he's talking about, there is a YouTube channel called Building Integrity. So building, BUILDING, and then integrity, INTEGRITY. And that guy has done some really, really good analysis so far. He is an engineer. I think his specialty is buildings like the one that collapsed. And so if you want to check, if you're interested in that, that is the site that I would recommend. At the beginning, he was releasing a video almost every day, but now I think he's getting a little better at it, and he's releasing one very in-depth video per week. So please check that out. It's just something that I've run across. And as I continue, as I stated when this happened, the first live show I did after the condo collapse happened, I believe that happened on a Thursday, so I had to wait like 6 days to talk about it. There's a lot we can learn from disasters, plane crashes, things like that, and apply them to disappearances. I'm going to continue to say that. The reason is that mostly 99.9% of the time, there's a lot of things that lined up for that plane to crash, for that building to crash, whatever happened. And that's the way it is in disappearances. I think that after almost 5 years of doing this program, you've been listening to it, watching the videos. I think we see that these disappearances are not just one moment in time, a second, 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes. There's lead up, there's things going on in that person's life. And that's very much the same way it is when collapses like this condo building are investigated. They find out this is going back years. And I think you're going to see that if you go to that video, that channel, Building Integrity, and he's going to show you these videos that were done in the parking garage before the building collapsed. You see problems, you see cracks, you see this, you see that. And it just reminds me so much of how I view disappearances after I've covered about 200 and almost 20 disappearances now on Unfound. And I even had a chance to talk to the building manager and the assistant building manager in my own building on Monday. I even went down there just to talk to them about it. I even walked in and said, they're just right down there in the second floor. I can walk in anytime. And I said, I bet you've had a lot of people come in, to talk to you about that building collapse, being that it's also, where I live. Condo building right on of course, this is on the Gulf, seawater or saltwater right in that direction. Of course, that building was right next to the Atlantic Ocean. But this building is only 5 years newer than the building that collapsed. And then so we started having a discussion about that building collapse. And I don't know if I'm at liberty to say what we talked about, but it's some of the things that I mentioned, a couple weeks ago when it first became, a topic. So it was interesting in being that both of these women have been in the condo business, building management business. I think they said for 20 years or something like that. They could offer a lot of good insight into condo boards and repairs and maintenance. And that's what we talked about. I'm going to say 10 or 15 minutes. And I found it very interesting. And I was so happy. I just kind of walked in there just because, and they were more than happy to talk to me about it. So we had a good discussion there. Spleen says, I have pain, but it's also light sensitivity. So I have to sit in the dark and I have a blanket on my head. Wow. Yeah, that's, I wouldn't say I have to go that far, Spleen, but my eyes are certainly sensitive to certain types of light. Like I said, in particular, light bouncing off computer screens, TV screens, things like that. D says, I used to have migraines, but since they have me on my meds for lupus and my fibromyalgia, I don't have them as much. Well, that's good, D. Tree says, I've been watching him too. Amazing, unbelievable, fascinating, tragic, so many adjectives. Building integrity. Yeah, so you found that too, Sheree. Well, I of course, in our very private discussion message group for the Unfound team, I did, I guess, post a link there, right? Maybe more than once. Okay, Sheree. Yeah, I think that the guy does a great job. And I think given that I've followed disasters, things like this for many, many years, I'm fairly particular about the presentation and whether I think the person really knows what he or she is talking about or is just doing it for the clicks and the shares and the views and everything. This guy certainly knows his stuff. Charlotte, Ed, do you think that the lower number of policemen on the police forces across America will hurt missing persons being found? I don't know if we know that yet, Charlotte. I it's too early to tell. I think I'm not sure. I don't think that, just thinking about all the disappearances we've covered on Unfound, I don't know if having more police around would have been enough to stop any of these disappearances. Might help in the investigation of them, maybe, but only if these investigators would know what they're doing. So, I think it's just too early to say. But it's interesting you brought that up because just within the last 48 hours, uh, I don't know if some of you've seen the statistics about overdoses that happened during 2020, drug overdoses, way up, like 20%, 25%, 30%, some crazy, crazy number or amount. And it mainly has to do, I think there's certainly a correlation and causation between everything that everybody went through in 2020 and all of these overdoses. But in reading at least one of those articles, the main problem is fentanyl. That more and more, heroin is not straight heroin. Cocaine is not straight cocaine. Crystal meth is not straight crystal meth. These drug makers doing it in their backyards or wherever are starting to add fentanyl into it. And fentanyl's, I don't know, some like 1,000 times more powerful than morphine or something, some crazy number. And that's part of it. More people doing drugs because they're stuck at home. And then we can talk about depression and everything else. So on one hand, just within the last month, I've seen where it says that suicides did not go up during the last year, at least in the United States. I'm just speaking for my country. Whereas it does seem that overdoses went through the roof and more than made up for suicides, the rate not going up as much as everybody suspected. So there's that. And I do have to believe that there is a factor in the 30% Shree, thank you. And knowing that, I think that when we think about a lot of these disappearances that we've covered on the program, especially more the recent ones, maybe Shawn Antill from last Friday, that we have to be open to the idea that fentanyl did play a role in some of these disappearances. We're not talking just strictly about heroin, crystal meth, marijuana, cocaine. It very well may be one of those, but mixed in with something that's a lot more powerful than any of them. But somebody's sprinkling that in there for some reason. I don't know. And it's killing people. So I'm certainly open to that. And although it's not that particular drug, fentanyl is not something that has come up on the program very much. And yes, Cherie, it is butterfly effect with an E, not an A. E is effect is a verb. Effect is a noun. Robin, good morning, Ed, and all on this winter morning, mid-morning in Australia. Wow, Robin. Wow. In Australia, it's winter. It's so weird to think about June, July, August as being winter months. And then for you, of course, November or January, February, March, or December, January, February, or the summer months. It's just it's flipped, and it is flipped. It's so weird. Well, good morning to you, Robin. Good day to you. Charlotte, they do it to make the user want the drugs more. Well, I don't doubt that at all, Charlotte. And it's a killer. It is certainly a killer. So those are some of the things that have been going on with me, and kind of just business as usual. I've been very busy working on some things. So let's move on to, once again, I will remind all of you, if you are watching, please give this video the thumbs up. Please give this video the thumbs up so we can be nice with the YouTube algorithms. I also want to state this, and this is something that I think we're going to start doing. I've spoken to Emily about it. Of course, I've run this by all the assistants. Something I think we're going to start adding to all of the YouTube videos, although I've not decided on a proper wording or anything yet, that there's going to be a kind of a reach out type of, I don't know, banner or something for each of the videos, making sure that if any family member, loved one of a missing person comes across any of our videos, that they know how to reach us. This is something that just came up as a topic within kind of the last week, and we're going to start doing that. So for these live shows, the regular videos, like with my assistant Natasha, who puts pictures to them and then posts them on YouTube, like Friday evenings or Saturday mornings, those are all going to have some sort of banner at the bottom or something at the beginning, something in the middle, something in, something like that. That is going to say something to the effect of, you are a family member of a missing loved one, would love to talk to you. Will be confidential, and just giving out the email for the program, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. We're going to do something like that. Like I said, I don't know what the proper wording is yet, but we're going to work on that. I think we need to do that because I think even almost 5 years into this program, there still may be kind of a question mark out there as to how do exactly you end up being interviewed for Unfound? How do I reach Ed? How do I do this? How do I do that? What is the process and everything? And it very well may be, even though we've had a lot of guests, and once in a while, an interview falls through like it did a couple weeks ago. But it very well may be that even though we do reach out to people through websites or Facebook pages, or of course, a lot of people who have been on the program know other family members of other missing persons cases and send them to us, and that's all fantastic. But it very well may be that still we are maybe not as proactive as we can be. So this is going to be one of those things, going to take that one step further or farther, whatever it is, whatever the word is. And all of these videos are going to have some sort of disclaimer eventually on them. At least the new ones. I'm not gonna expect Natasha to go back through every one of them, put that on there. But at some point, whether it's this video or Friday's episode or something, we're going to start putting something in there. So family members who run across Unfound's podcast channel and end up watching a video, seeing me, listening to an episode on YouTube, can then see that, oh, this is how you contact Ed. This is how it all happens. So we're going to do that. So I'll just say this now, if there are any family members, friends, brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, children of missing people out there who are watching this right now, feel free to contact me. It's unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Our conversations will be confidential. They'll be off the record. Usually the first couple conversations that you and I will have will be just fact-gathering missions for me to find out not just what is already out in the public, maybe things that have not made it into a news story yet, or onto the Charlie Project, or onto NamUs. Those are the kinds of pieces of information, of course, I'm always looking for in those initial conversations. All of that on top of whatever is already out in the public. So once again, if you're one of those people, I should state, we don't need necessarily any more suggestions. We get a lot of suggestions for missing persons cases. And I appreciate everybody is trying to give us opinions on that. But, and I've been saying this for a while, if you want to guarantee practically that the case that's in your area or one that you've been following for a while, one that really something really gets to your heartstrings, or however you want to put it, the easiest way for it to get on the program is for you to already have contact information for people who are involved with that disappearance, a family member, a friend, somebody like that. I just want to keep away from people just sending lists and lists and lists of missing persons cases that we need to look at. I know there are thousands and thousands out there. We're really interested if you already know somebody you've seen something, you've heard something, and you can give us contact information so that we can act upon it. Okay. So, but for any family members, friends of a missing person, as long as the disappearance is at least a year old, if you're watching this right now, feel free to contact me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. So what's everybody saying in here? AJ is saying, hey there, Robin. Good day, Aussie. Vicky, they're spraying their meth with wasp spray here in Ohio. That's nice. Wow. Coffee, is there a list anywhere of all the cases that have been solved? I don't know if that has been made public. Coffee. It just depends what you mean by the word solved. Is Chris Turner's death solved? His remains have been found, but I don't think anybody knows how he died, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's solved. Same way with Tom Brown. His remains have been solved. It's still up in the air on how he died. So is it solved? That's hard to say. But I do keep track of that, though. Thank you, CR. Thank you, Little. Talking about spelling. Cherie says, well, you would certainly win in a Scrabble game with me, Kathy. History, literature, and government were my favorites. I got to admit, I'm a killer Scrabble player. Anybody in my family will tell you that. Scrabble, pretty good at it. I don't know if I would be good enough to compete. Like they have like national Scrabble competitions, professionals, you can win money and everything. I don't know if I'm that good, but Scrabble's always been one of my strongest board games. Coffee says, sorry for the way I asked the question. You don't have to apologize, Coffee. There's no reason to apologize. It's just not an easy question to answer given the way I define it. I think, the public hears solved and they automatically, have a vision. And I don't know if my vision is exactly the same way. Granted, the program is called Unfound. So we are looking for people. And granted, a lot of people, unfortunately, they've been deceased, have been found. Once again, but there is a difference between Zoe Campos's remains being found and Tom Brown's remains being found. There's a difference between Andrea Bowman's, Alexis's remains being found and Chris Turner's remains being found. There's a difference between Crystal Morrison's remains being found and, for example, Tiffany Johnson, where her remains have not been found, but her ex-boyfriend is in jail for her kidnapping. So is that solved? I would say not. It just depends. There's a lot of wiggle room in that word solved, but it's a good question. Coffee, it's a legitimate question. It's a fair question. But solved in my world is a little difficult to define. Shri says, I like politics, Kathy, but Ed won't let me talk about it. Yeah, we're not going to do that here, Shri. We're not going to do that anywhere, no matter what's people's. I don't even care if it was somebody posting things that I agree with 100%. It's not happening. So let's move on. Let's go to where we usually go first when we get to the items, what I would call the center meat part of the program, the Shawn Antill poll. And a large majority of you in the discussion group decided that, yes, he disappeared from the house. I'm guessing that a lot of people came to that conclusion because of his phone last pinging in that area. There were some other people who said that, yes, he died out near that fence. Maybe Preston's second story is the truth. And then very few people chose the party option, which is, as I think was explained in the interview, just something that's out there, kind of a rumor, a theory. I'm not sure what to make of it. I hear a lot of, in these types of disappearances, we hear a lot about that. It doesn't seem like it ever comes to be. So a large majority of you decided that Shawn disappeared from the house. Something went on at Preston's mother's house, and probably Shawn died there. Not necessarily saying it was murder, but maybe it could be something like we were just talking about, doing drugs laced with fentanyl, and Shawn died. However, I have to say, in the think tank, though, it was a little more nuanced. Some people believed that he disappeared from the house. And it wasn't, we had a very small group on this past Sunday for the think tank, 7 people. Usually it's more like 10 or 11, and that's fine. It seems a few more people were open to the idea that, you know what, it very well may be that Preston and Shawn were in that vehicle and they were high out there on that road and they hit into the fence, not intending to, and ran off. And, you know, who knows what was going on in their heads. And Shawn's out there. He died. We have to remember it's December. We don't know if he was wearing the right clothes and probably was running in the wrong direction. And, you know, the tough part, you know, we can't forget about disappearances that we've covered that are kind of like that. Brennan Smokey. There is video, at least I believe, and many people believe, that is Brennan on that video running away that day after getting chased by the cops with 2 other guys. He ran off. Never been found. Keith Fetter, another disappearance where we don't know if he was on drugs or not, but he was certainly something was going on with him mentally. He got in the car with those people that he knew well. They got down to the end of the block. He jumps out, runs off into the woods, and they came back to his ex-wife's house asking, hey, did Keith run back here? And I know that there's some people, maybe it was foul play. It just doesn't seem like that to me in Keith's disappearance. We also can't forget Renee LaManna in New Jersey, who disappeared while at her sister's beachfront home, never to be seen again, in Ocean City, New Jersey, not Ocean City, Maryland, but Ocean City, New Jersey. And she ran off. So running off, we've covered at least 3, and that's just off the top of my head. So we can't forget that when we look at a disappearance like Shawn Antill's. It very well may be using the phone evidence that he was never near that fence. On the other hand, people like Shawn, I think, are more inclined to run off under strange circumstances. But, you know, the overall theme of that episode is one that is very, very near and dear to my heart. Trying to beat these people, trying to defeat the Preston Yateses of the world, trying to defeat the David Perrys of the world, trying to defeat husbands like Jeff Green who tell all crazy stories when their wives go missing. You know, I'm not competing. Unfound is not competing against any other true crime podcast out there. I continue to say this. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what their numbers are. I don't know how many listeners they are. I don't know. The only people we are competing against at Unfound are the people who cause these disappearances. That's it. So, and I am a competitive person, and it's why, like for disc golf, I only enjoy it when I'm playing well. But that will continue to be a theme. And I didn't expect, for those of you at Patreon, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. If you'd like to read the blogs, if you'd like to be part of the think tank, please go there and sign up. Patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. It wouldn't seem that Shawn Antill's blog would be as long as it is. There aren't a lot of facts to write about, but this particular blog this week was almost 4,000 words, which usually they're 3,100, 3,200, 3,300. This one was almost 4,000. And I had an opportunity to talk about why I think people like Preston Yates get away with these disappearances. Now, it may very well be that Preston Yates didn't do anything, but we have enough disappearances like Shawn's to know that most likely Preston Yateses of the world are causing disappearances. And so I tried to tackle the topic of how do these people get away with it? What do they have on us? They're addicts. They have criminal behavior. They've gotten caught committing crimes in the past. Why is it that they seem so good at these types of disappearances? And so I try to analyze that. I write about that. And as usual, it is a theory that I'm still working on, but almost 4,000 words. And if you are a Patreon member, I hope you enjoyed that one. Of course, I provide the audio version of the blog is now as well now on Patreon. Patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Joel says, have you had a chance to go over the Thomas Brown case from Canadian Texas? Joel, how many times have I, the question is, how many times have I gone over that case? It's not a question of yes or no. I've probably gone over it 100 times in the last 3 years, probably. Sheree says, Sean's reminds me somewhat reminds me of Molly and Colts too. Kinda. You know, I guess they did run off. I mean, can't argue with that, Sheree. You know, the issue is I don't know if anybody really believes that, but it very well could be. So that might be a good example too, Sheree. Sure. Did not come to mind. Vicky says that fence was hit way after the date Shawn went missing. It does seem that way, Vicky. But in my opinion, and we even talked about this in the think tank, the timeline, even though Julie and I went over the timeline in it, there's still, I have to admit, there's still a couple things, and I will talk about this with Julie eventually. I do a follow-up with all of the guests who have ever been on the program. There still seems to be something weird about the timeline and all of that. All right, I'm not sure that things are as pat and as solid as I think they should be. It seems weird to me, given when those recordings that we have now on the channel were done 30th and 31st, to think that he went to jail for a couple days, but then on January 2nd, you know, what did he do? He went immediately home and then immediately drove out there. There's just something about all of that that doesn't quite all fit to me, Vicky. Maybe I'm just thick, and that's always possible. But I think that I would like to see the timeline be a little more neat. Kathy says Riles Chapman. Yes, he is another one who ran off. There's another good one. See, all of you know these cases. Yes, another one. His father, you know, right there in his own house, in the pool house, ran off. Right. Charlotte says Molly and Case's cult is so terrible. They are all so terrible. Spleen says problem with drug addicts, people on drugs, is their stories do change a lot, not just to cover stuff up, but because they cannot be trusted to even remember properly, even if innocent. Yeah, and that was what came up in the Noah Davis disappearance, Spleen, and talking to this woman who has cleaned herself up since Noah went missing. I mean, she admits There were days we weren't sleeping, days run together, we lose track of what day of the week it is, and that is a major problem in trying to put all of that together for Noah Davis's disappearance and putting those days together. It's very difficult. Right. Vicky says, I don't believe Preston was good at what he got away with. We had to fight the detective to do his job, and well, he's now fired for tampering with evidence. Vicky, I know that, but I will tell you that we have enough experience in Shawn's kind of disappearance. Once again, with people who allegedly ran off, people who are missing, who are involved with drugs, were involved with criminals, and everything else, that somebody got away with it, one way or the other. And in these other disappearances, there is no proof that any investigator or anybody tampered with evidence. So I know what you're saying about former investigator Toker, but I don't believe that's the reason that there's nothing that I saw and heard in talking to Julie that caused me to believe the reason this is unsolved is because of Detective Toker. The reason this is unsolved is because we have a bunch of unreliable people. And truthfully, nobody noticed that Shawn was missing for a week. That's probably the biggest thing of all. When somebody, no matter what they're doing in their life, no matter what, I don't care if they're doing drugs or not. I don't care if they're a criminal or not. I don't care where they are in a big city or a small town. If the person is not discovered to be missing for a week, good luck. Good luck. It's bad. It's just, it makes it infinitely more difficult. And then you can go even further if you want to talk about Eric Franks' disappearance. Nobody knew he was missing for 9 months. And he wasn't a guy who did drugs. He was not a criminal. But somebody successfully made him disappear, and his car disappear until last year. Cherie says, regardless of all the data we could collect, we can't predict what drug addicts or suicidal people we don't do. We have pictures of that gate that wasn't touched. Once again, Vicky, I'll just, I'm not going to beat this into the ground too much, but there just seems to be something about the timeline. And like I said, I think we covered it as best as we could in my interview with Julie. I'm not saying she's wrong or anything else, but it sounds to me like she is saying that Preston went to jail on December 31st, and her own words is he was in there for a couple days, which means to me he was in there at least until January 2nd. But she's also saying that she was out there on January 2nd, and that is when the fence was shown to have the paint from Preston's vehicle on it. So that is pretty tight, Vicky. The only way then that could have happened that Julie saw that paint is immediately as soon as he was let out of jail, he went home, jumped in his vehicle, and drove the whole way out there and ran into that fence. And I'm not saying it's not. It may be impossible depending on when he got out of jail. It may be impossible. I'm just going by, would have actually done the investigation that's being done now. We probably be further along on solving Shawn's case. Maybe, Vicky, all I would tell you is there's no guarantees. There are no guarantees. I probably, but I could give you example after example after example of disappearances where investigators were on it from day one. Being that the next topic in my discussion is Mary Lyle. I got to speak to her a couple days ago. Detectives and investigators were on her disappearance from day one. March 1st, 1998. She wasn't into drugs. Didn't have any shady friends. Was coming home for work. Rode public transportation back to the Albany University campus. She's still missing over 23 years later. And I'm telling you, there is no more work that could have been done in her disappearance than was done. This is how difficult they are. So this is just my experience, that you can do all of the right things and still not have the answers that you want. This is why disappearances are the toughest of the toughest of the toughest. And there are no guarantees. This is why also so many disappearances are solved by luck. It was luck that somebody ran across Crystal Morrison's remains where they did. It was luck that somebody came across Esther Westenbarger in her Cadillac in that pond. It was luck that Robbie Hurt's remains were found less than a mile from where his truck was. It was luck that Chris Turner's remains were found in the desert right there at the end of Charleston Boulevard in Las Vegas. It's just luck, and I hate it. I hate it. But that luck plays such a part in this should show everyone that this is how difficult it is. And luck is not a very good way to solve anything. But right now it is. We're trying to change that. But that is just the facts. Whereas, yes, the remains of Tom Brown. Well, some people believe that it wasn't luck that his remains were found, but other people do. Andrea Bowman's remains being found, not luck. Good detective work. Zoe Campos's remains being found, should have been found the first time around, but once again, good detective work. Austin Pivo, I'm still not sure I know enough about his remains being found to know whether it was luck or not. I don't know. But some guys are going to be going on trial for his murder. And so I'm just not as quick, being given my experience, Vicky, to say, well, if they would have had a different investigator, they'd be further along. I just don't know. I've not heard anything in talking to Julie as much as I did and have and will continue to do, that it would be much different. He certainly sounds like a bad investigator. But we hear about a lot of bad investigators, mainly because they don't know what they're doing, because they don't have any experience in this area. Charlotte, Ed, do you think the serial killer Israel Keys could have taken? Well, let's move on to that. Being that Charlotte, I will tell you that in speaking to Mary Lau yesterday, that she brought up Israel Keys. I did not. It wasn't on my agenda. I was calling her for other reasons. She brought it up. And I've talked to her about it before, but she brought it up. There is nothing. I'm going to keep saying it. Nothing. Despite what all these internet rumor mongers and people that love to go on Reddit and just come up with theories and everything else, there's no proof he had anything to do with her disappearance. Zero. Yes, he might have been in the state of New York around that time. I'm not sure that he was in a lot of states a lot of times. And I remind everyone that, a lot of people believed Israel Keys killed Tara Grinstead. That used to be a thing until they charged somebody else. Well, he could have been in Georgia. Yeah. Except we now know that somebody else did it, although Tara Grinstead's remains still have not been found. So it came up. It's still the same status, Charlotte. Anybody who's writing that is just throwing a theory out there. I continue to say that Israel Keys is probably one of the most overrated killers of the 21st century in the United States. People have made him to be out this some super villain or anything else, where we all know that he got caught by using some dead girl's credit cards. That doesn't sound like a very smart criminal to me. So, he's gone from just killer to legend, and really he's just a killer. I've seen nothing. And Mary says it well. She knows the case as well as anybody in the public. And in fact, I think at this point, 23 years later, she knows the disappearance as much as the police do. I don't think at this point, they're withholding anything from her. No proof of that. No proof of that. But it's great conversation. If you need, if you're bored at 2 a.m. and you got nobody to talk to about true crime, you can always bring up Israel Keys and who he might have killed. And, it's interesting conversation. But, we don't do that. I'm telling you, there's no proof of that. Mary Lau is telling you, there's no proof of that. If you don't believe me, believe her. Vicky says, I totally agree. It's just hell living it. Yeah. I know, Vicky. I know. I wish I could make it go away. I wish I could make it all go away for all of these people. But that's not the way the world works. D says her remains will never be found. What you mean, Suzanne Lyles? D, you just never know when those things can happen. I would never rule out anything. I mean, who would have thought that Andrea Bowman's remains would be found after 30 years being on Dennis Bowman's land? Who would have thought that they would get access to that before he died? Nobody. But it happened. So I'm not here to rule out. I'm not going to rule out anything, D. But it does appear to me, though, that some disappearances seem to be more solvable than others. But I could be wrong about that. I don't know Crystal Morrison's. I don't know if anybody thought that was ever going to be solved. Then it was. This is how these things happen. I don't know if anybody ever thought Thomas Brown's remains or he was going to be found alive, deceased, or at all. And then all of a sudden there are his remains, 30% of them. Charlotte says, I've read books about him. I think his drinking made him get sloppy. About Israel Keys. Once again, Charlotte, it's a great cottage industry. People love to talk about him, write books about him. Why? Because they sell, not because there's any new information about him. I bring this up with the JFK assassination. It seems like there's at least one book a year that's written about it, some new angle or anything. There is no new information regarding the assassination of JFK on November 22nd, 1963. But people keep writing about it. Marcus says, I wonder if they were able to exclude a connection between Karen Wilson and Suzanne Lau. I have to admit, Karen Wilson, yes, she was in that area, but many years before Marcus, the way I remember it, I don't know. I'm going to guess that at some point Karen Wilson's name came up with Mary, but I've spoken to her so many times. I don't remember what the conversation was. I don't. It did not come up a couple days ago. D. Kaufman, yes. Tara Grinstead, that's T-A-R-A-D. Shri says Civil War. I don't know why you wrote that. You mean Captain America Civil War, Shri? I don't know why I wrote that, but that's interesting. Okay. So, yes, I did get to speak to Mary Lau. I just called her, wanted to talk to her, hadn't spoken to her in a while. And I think I can say this without, and she brought it up to me, and I wasn't able to find anything. So I don't know what to make of this, but she said that she thought she heard some new information regarding Jason Jolkowski. That's news to me. I've not been able to find anything. I said to her, could it just be because it's been 20 years now? He disappeared, in June of 2001? So we just passed 20 years. Could it be that there was an article written about it because it was 20 years? And she didn't think so, but I don't know. If anybody's seen any new information regarding his disappearance, I'd love to know. That's news to me. She brought it up, and I was like, wow, really? I was a little surprised. So I haven't seen anything. Shri says the Civil War, all the books, nothing new. Yes. And very well may be right, Shri. Maybe that's a good point. I mean, so many books have been written about it. Do we need any more? If there's some what with it? I don't know if it's an anthropologist or something. If somebody, is going to some battleground here in the eastern United States and is digging around and finds something that maybe changes our interpretation of a battle or something, then I'm, I guess, but nobody's doing that for the assassination of JFK. So, all the books, nothing new. Yeah, sure. D, Ed Terrace case I've been following before I was part of this group. Yeah. I followed it for a long time too, D, for sure. For sure. Just like many disappearances well before I could have even guessed that I would be doing a true crime program for sure. So once again, Mary brought up Jason Jolkowski. News to me. If there's something new, I don't know. So if anybody sees anything new somewhere, please let me know. That would be something. Let's move on to this. By the way, I did not get any questions before tonight's show started. So I will not be diverting to the questions once in a while because there's nothing to go to. So some of you have already asked me some questions. If you have any other questions you'd like answered, I'll be free to answer them. I got nothing on the docket in that area. So doesn't have to be true crime or missing persons related either. Shree says D was referring to Tara remains not being found, right? Not Suzanne's, just to clarify. Yeah. Yep. Tara's remains have not been found. I don't know where they are. They were supposed to be in that orange grove or some garden or something like that. I don't think they found anything. I mean, we would surely know, being that, Payne Lindsay is out there, has gained all this fame from that case. You'd think he would tell everybody where the remains are found. I don't think he's done that. So let's move on to this. Erica Lloyd. This was the woman from California. If you remember, this was an Unfound Now episode that it must have been last summer. Must have been a year ago. I think it was the second episode of Unfound Now. Linda Stoltfus was number one, was the first one. But if you'll remember, she was a woman from Walnut Grove or Walnut Creek, California? But she drove down to Southern California to the Joshua Tree National Park. Then, as was found out later, she drove the whole way back home, then went back down there. Well, I don't know what to make of this, but it turns out the two people have been charged with stealing her car and wrecking it. So it seems that she was not the last person to drive her car. And in reading the articles, this has just come out recently within the last few days, that this is one of the reasons that it was difficult to find her remains. It seems that she was at this camping area and then drove her car away, ran into a curb, walked away from the car. There are at least one witness, if we want to believe witnesses, is saying, yeah, they did see a woman kind of dazed and everything walking away. And then the car was gone. Well, it turned out two people came along, saw the car there, and tried to steal it. And they got it a couple miles before it overheated. And they were finally identified and they were caught recently. But this is the reason that the search areas were so thrown off between where seemingly Erica left her car and where these other people left her car, which was a couple miles difference. Now, the question is, well, maybe these people are actually involved in her disappearance. Maybe they killed her. I'm guessing that they're going, to look into that. Of course, I've been on the record, at least from the information that I knew, that it does seem to me that something was going on with Erika Lloyd that had nothing to do with anybody else but Erika Lloyd. She was having issues due to COVID, due to work, troubled, Anybody that would drive 500 miles to go camping and then drive 500 miles back to take care of their dog to then drive 500 miles back down sounds a little manic to me. And we also found out that she did have a journal and wrote about encountering a couple people while she was down there. So I guess here we are here, I guess about a year later, maybe not quite that long. And it very well may be that Erica Lloyd's death was foul play after all of this. Maybe. But these are stories. Maybe some of you saw the stories too. Or I have to admit that the way it sounds to me is she was going through something. Maybe she was doing drugs. I don't know. But there was something going on with her. And she tried to drive her car, wrecked her car, and stumbled off, as this, if we're going to believe a witness, says. And this starts to sound more like Jason Landry. That, did she get into this wreck, have a head injury, walk away, and die from that head injury? I think we have to be open to that now, which is a little bit different than what my understanding of this disappearance has been and her death has been. So we'll continue to keep. I will continue to keep an eye on it. It is certainly on in my vision, because this is a disappearance covered by Unfound now, and certainly want to see what the ultimate resolution to all of this is. But a lot of articles been written, but I don't know if anybody has gone to the point of saying, well, it very well may be that these two have been charged with trying to steal her car and whatever actually caused her disappearance. Nobody has written that, but it wouldn't be too hard to infer that. I'm not saying that's true, but I guess I'm saying there could be a connection. D says Tara was burned to death. Well, the problem with Tara Grinstead was burned to death. The issue is it's not very easy to burn a human body to ashes. In fact, who was I talking? Probably I was talking to a future guest yesterday about this. And there's a reason that crematoriums are so expensive and work the way they do. Because you need high heat for a very, very long time. It's not like you can just put a body over a campfire and then eventually expect that the body will eventually turn to ashes. A campfire does not burn hot enough to turn a human body into ash. Of course, it burns it, but that's something totally different. Of course, we can get burned from a lighter. So I have my doubts about that, D. If cremating people and turning them to ash was so easy that a couple people who had surely never done this before can do it, then crematoriums that they use at funeral homes would not be as expensive as they are. So I have to admit, D, I don't believe that. I think this is very much like Teresa Butler's disappearance, where somebody's been sent to jail, but her remains have not been found. And he's saying, yeah, I did this to her. I did that to her. No proof of that. I personally think in Teresa Butler's that he's lying. I believe that Teresa Butler's remains are still around, unfortunately just bones, somewhere. And he's just lied about it just because. We have to remember, there is, in these types of people who do this, whether it's the Dukes, whatever their names were, Duke and Dukes, or the guy who surely murdered Teresa Butler, or David Perry, or any of these people, they have a very high motivation to keep control of the situation. This is why many of them, even when they are said, you know what, you tell us where her remains are, we'll give you a few years off on your sentence. These people don't do it. They love that control. And so you should never take nothing should ever be taken as being honesty with them. So that's why I doubt that, D. of a few different reasons. It's very difficult to burn a human body, and the mentality, the psychology of people who do this. So I would keep that in mind, D. Marcus, not related to Unfound, but thoughts on Aaron Rodgers' situation. I can comment on this at least a little bit, Marcus. I got to tell you, Marcus, Aaron Rodgers seems like kind of a weird cat to me. I did watch the golfing competition this past week. Phil Mickelson, of course, my favorite athlete, with Bryson DeChambeau, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers just seems a little, I don't know what it is. Certainly a good quarterback. Certainly Green Bay would be better if he stayed. But, you know, he just seems, it's hard to tell. Him not being satisfied with this, not being satisfied with that. I would say he doesn't put himself in a position where it's easy to like him. And I'm not a Green Bay fan either, anyway. In fact, they beat my Steelers, and Aaron Rodgers beat my Steelers way back in Super Bowl 45. But he just seems like a weird cat. So, Sheree says, what does a dazed woman look like? I think what they meant, Sheree, regarding Erica Lloyd, is she was stumbling around, walking down the street, kind of seemed out of it a little bit, I think. Charlotte, have I ever heard of the Ian Eccles case? I have not. Mama, you mentioned the Crystal Morrison case had been solved, but only the thing I knew was that her body was found, nothing else. Mama, I will tell you that her family is satisfied that she died of heat exposure on the day that she went missing. I've talked, not recently, but I've spoken to Michelle, her sister, who was the original guest, and she speaks for the family. And she said they are satisfied that what happened was that Crystal really was sick, and she was very underweight. It was 100 degrees that day. Who knows what kind of medication she was taking. She was a recovered addict, but, you know, we know that addicts, when they do these things, the body's defenses maybe never are the same again to fight disease and things. And she strode out into 100-degree weather. Why she left her work to go down to the Shell station, we never know. She may have already been in the clutches of some sort of delirium. So her family is satisfied there's no foul play, Mama. If they're satisfied with it, then I'm satisfied with it. Even though I realize that, you know, that there's some wiggle room there, but if they're satisfied, I'm satisfied. Spleen says, well, being manic could cause your own death, but people in that state become very vulnerable to crime. Yeah. Marcus, that case is being investigated as a homicide, right? Charlotte, yes, Marcus, the man who was tried and convicted was an illegal immigrant. Yeah, I just don't know anything about that. They have never found Ian's body. Vicky, but it does look up the murder of Stephanie in Toronto, Ohio, burned in a bonfire right on a backyard beside my brother-in-law's house. Once again, Vicky, it's not easy to do. It's not impossible, but it's certainly never my, first choice regarding how people get rid of missing people. It's very, very difficult. It's it's harder than burying. It's harder than putting a body at the bottom of a lake. It's harder than everything else. Once again, due to the time involved and everything that you have to get together to burn that person and just sit there and let it happen. It's going to be hours. So, they're looking at Micah Shane for at least 20 more murders from Ohio to Florida. Paula, thoughts on asking people to call Hemphill County to ask for a grand jury? Eric, thank you very much. You're very generous. And I appreciate it. You're a very faithful viewer of this live show every Wednesday night. Thank you very much. You're very kind. Thoughts on asking people to call Hemphill County to ask for a grand jury? I don't think that's going to sway them at all. I don't think that that's how law works, not just in Hemphill County, but anywhere in the United States. And it shouldn't. This isn't mob rule. If the people of Hemphill County don't like what the DA's office, and if they're, that is it an elected position, I guess they can elect somebody else. But I don't see that as being successful. And from what I've heard, I've not done it personally, but from what I've heard, people have called Hemphill County or whatever to find out if this grand jury, there's nothing on the docket. I'm guessing these people could be not telling the truth, but there's no plans for any sort of grand jury or anything else. So I just don't know. Vicky says, we live 35 minutes from Pittsburgh. Well, I lived 45 minutes from Pittsburgh. That's where I grew up, Vicky, Leechburg, Pennsylvania. Charlotte said, that would be good, Paula, if they would convene a grand jury. I still have all the doubts in the world. Mama says, it's so sad that happened to her. I was married to a love-in-law, to Clayton Love, and knew Kevin and Crystal. Thanks for your response. You're welcome, Mama. I'm just telling you what Michelle, I think where Crystal's family is. Maybe that's changed. I've not spoken to Michelle in a while. Maybe their attitude has changed, but I will tell you that after Crystal's remains were identified, I did speak to Michelle, and that was what they said. That's what she said. Paula, I felt like it was a PR thing. People doing PR, public relations work, in the Tom Brown case, Paula, I'm shocked. So let's move on. Rebecca Gary, this think tank member, was able to get the file. It was sent to me within the past week. Some of it is a bit hard to read, but certainly a lot more details in it than we covered back in 2017 when I had Rebecca's sister on the program. Joyce was on the program. So a couple more names that were not blacked out. And I really don't know how much I can talk about it, but the FOIA was done. This think tank member did get the file, has sent it to me, has sent it to Rebecca's sister, Rebecca's daughter, and I guess in one way it's a lot more information, but it in another way, it does, you'd think with more information, you'd be starting to narrow what happened. But in this situation, with the information, a few more pieces of information that were not, I think, included in the original episode, I think with the more information, it actually widens the possibilities, is not narrowing them. So we'll just have to see. I've not had a chance to talk to Rebecca's sister or her daughter yet. I don't know if they've gone through every page of this report that we've gotten. I hope to talk to them in the near future. I don't think it's going to be tomorrow, but I hope to talk to them about it. And they will be able to compare the reports or report with many pages with what they remember. And we'll see where we can go with it. But certainly this was well worth our time to do so. And I was more than happy to finance them getting this paperwork that they never saw before. Like I said, some of it, the writing in it is almost hieroglyphics. You really, really, really have to look at the word because it's some investigator from 30 some years ago, writing longhand, and I'm sure he can read it. For the rest of us, we really have to get out our decoder rings. So that it takes a little while because of that to go from page to page. But I think that 90% of the words, if not more, are legible. And you kind of just have to fill in the blanks for a couple things here and there. But we got it. We're going to work on it, and we'll see where it goes. That's really all I can say at this time. And I'm still working on this other FOIA for a disappearance. I told you about this FOIA that we filed for that is 628 pages. Not have gotten that yet. Let's move on to this. Dr. Telesco, I had a back and forth with her over texting a couple days ago. We will be getting together again. Put it on your calendars. July 29th, 7 p.m. That's a Thursday. So I will be missing trivia that night. And we will be discussing the disappearance of Megan Lancaster. So we'll have an opportunity to talk about a disappearance and small town corruption. Talk about Mike Moran and Megan's little black book and all of that. So that will once again be July 29th, 7 p.m. Eastern on Dr. Telesco's The Fischler College of Education and School of Criminal Justice YouTube channel. Be excited. We did not do one in June. Happy to get back to it in July, right before my birthday, August 1st. It's a Sunday. Will be my birthday. So I'm guessing I'll be celebrating my birthday while we do the think tank for all of you people in here who are part of the think tank. I will still conduct it. Doesn't matter if it's my birthday or not. It's still going to happen, the think tank. Let's move on to this. Being that Paula brought this up before, at least a couple people brought it up. Tom Brown. I did see the statement that Phil Klein made. In fact, Cherie made sure that I saw it, and he said that stated that he would stake his reputation on the fact that Tom did not commit suicide. You know, I will say, granted, I know Phil Klein has been been doing private investigating work more than I've been doing this program. But I have been doing this for almost 5 years. And I'm guessing in covering 200 some disappearances and getting to know the people involved, that I've technically handled more missing persons cases than he has. And here's what I know. I would never stake my reputation on predicting any outcome to any disappearance case. Once again, because they are so unpredictable. I would never do that. I'll do my best. I'll be honest. I'll be honest with all of you. I will be moral, ethical, and legal regarding everything that I do. But I'm always going to tell you, I'm as honest as any podcast host out there. When I have doubts, when I have concerns, I've stated many, many times, there are many disappearances that we've already covered on Unfound that I could live to be 100 years old, and I know some of those aren't going to be solved in the next 50 years. It sucks. But that's what the stats say. And so you add on top of that who could have predicted that Esther Westenbarger and her car would be found in a pond? I don't know. I guess maybe at the time, maybe he should have taken that more seriously as a possibility. I've had a chance to think about that. Crystal Morrison, being that we just spoke about her. Given what we knew about her and that day, and who calls to get picked up and then leaves their work? But that seems like what happened. Who would have thought that she would be found right down the street from the Shell station? Nobody. I'm glad she was found. I think it's good for her family. I'm happy that they have resolution, and they seem to believe they're content in the belief that she died due to heat exhaustion from that day. It happens. Of course, I've not died from heat exhaustion, but I've been out on some disc golf courses and on certain days, and I'm like, man, I do not feel good at all. And I am not a recovering addict. I'm not underweight. I'm much healthier than probably Crystal Morrison was. But I also know, had I not had water there, had there not been shade, etc., who knows what would have happened. So you just never know how these things are going to go. Zoe Campos. Who would have thought that her remains would be found in Carlos Rodriguez's backyard, even though the police had already searched there once before, 5 years before that? How did they miss her the first time around? I still don't know. But it happened. So you just never know. So I would not stake my reputation on any particular theory or guess or anything else. And so when I write what I do in the blog at Patreon, or when I talk about things on this live show, I'm giving you my best opinion on the facts available. And moreover, I'm trying to teach with Unfound and now and on here, other places, I'm trying to teach some theory on missing persons cases, just comparing disappearances that we've covered and disappearances that have been solved and how they got solved and what happened. And can we apply that to all these other disappearances over here where they aren't solved? And that, to me, that sounds like the scientific method. I continue to say that only 30% of Tom's remains are found. And in 2019, the DA's office, or the Attorney General of Texas, with all of their investigators, his remains were found in late June or late January, early February of 2019. They had at least 7 months to look into all of this. His remains, the phone, the backpack, the computer, the car, all of this stuff, the rumors that were out there. They got to talk to Nathan Lewis, on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And the meeting they had in August that some of us got to hear because Nathan Lewis recorded it unethically, they came to the conclusion that they may never know on how Tom Brown died. And there are no facts, to my knowledge, that have occurred, that have been gathered since that meeting that has changed anybody's mind, that has changed the course of this at all. And I'm not the final word on this. That's what they say. That's not what I say. That's what they say. And they are the people responsible for it. Yes, in that meeting, they did say that this phone thing is weird. And I think they do think it was planted. But just because that was planted or something doesn't mean Tom was murdered. There's we can't forget that how much weird stuff does go on in the missing persons community. We have all sorts of charlatans. We have all sorts of palm readers. We have all sorts of psychics. We have all sorts of con men and con women. So to believe that somebody might just throw a phone out there is not crazy. It's certainly not as crazy as psychics thinking that they can solve missing persons cases by, just by divine intervention or seeing something in their mind. That's certainly crazier than throwing a phone out there. So why do we exclude the idea that it couldn't have been done and it has nothing to do with Tom's death? So I will stake my reputation on the idea that we present these cases as objectively as we can. I give my guests honest advice. I try to give you my opinion based on everything that we've done in Unfound for almost the last 5 years. That's where I stake my reputation. But as far as what's going to happen in these disappearances, I think we know, even just doing this program for 5 years, that it's unpredictable. And it's unpredictable. We're trying to change that. Paula says, I have so many sarcastic comments I want to make, but I won't out of respect for Ed. Yeah, don't do that, Paula. Marcus says, missing persons cases are so difficult to solve due to their unpredictability. Yeah. This is, being that we just covered Shawn Antills. It very well may be that he was murdered. Very well may be. But it's just as likely that he really did run off. Why? Because we have a lot of examples of that. And so he can never, kind of exclude anything. Mama, I really like listening to Unfound. Just want to let you know. Thank you, Mama. That's a great name. Mama Love. I really like that, Mama. Marcus says, sticking your neck out because of your belief of a certain outcome in a person's case is questionable. Hello, Jill. How are you? You recognize that post that I put on my personal page? I like the skies that go boom. You like that one, Jill, huh? Sheree agrees with Marcus. Charlotte, we never know how a case will turn out. Sheree says, International Space Station just flew over. It's super cool. Sheree, I've been wanting to see that myself, being that I have such a good view of the sky and everything. I've missed it when it's flown over this part of Florida. I do want to see that sometime. Funny you should mention that. Mimi, it is common for such a small percentage of remains to be found. That is what bothers me. It seems as though more should have been found. Well, Mimi, I think, hello, Chad. I think, Mimi, if you want to compare, for example, Crystal Morrison's, my belief is that most of her remains were found. That's, I think, what happened. In contrast to Tom's, it was only 30%. Why is that? Why is it the Crystal's remains were pretty much intact after 8 years, but Tom's, there was only 30% of them there after 2 years and 2 months? I don't know. Could have to do with the terrain. Could have to do with the animals and things in each area between North Carolina and Texas. I don't know. Chris Turner's. I don't know if all the remains were found in his case, and his remains were found. I mean, his remains were actually found before his mother was even on the program, and she didn't know. He disappeared in August of 2016. His remains were found in April of 2017, and I don't think 100% of his remains were found. So it's just something, one more thing, Mimi, that we just don't have the full grasp on it. There's certainly reasons. This is not some sort of magic or voodoo or something like that. There are scientific reasons. We just don't know what those scientific reasons are. Now, very well may be that somebody just put partial remains there. Possible. I guess but if there's evidence of that, I'd like to see it. I'm the one who's had the opportunity to speak to Pine Gregory. Outside of those AG investigators who I think spoke to him, outside of them, I think that I've gotten to speak to him the most. Maybe my assistant Sheree has spoken to him more than I have, because she keeps in contact with him. But he explained to me how it happened. He could be lying. I talked to Steve Pankey. A lot of you think he lied when I talked to him. It's up for you to decide. The only problem we have is that Pine Gregory would not go on the record with a lot of things we talked about. And that's unfortunate. But on the other hand, I gave him an opportunity to defend himself, not just with that, but of course getting fired and everything else, and he wouldn't take it, which in a way maybe sounds like some integrity. Maybe. Or maybe he's afraid that he maybe deserved it and doesn't want to admit it, and I'll, talk him into a corner or something. I don't know. But I've had an opportunity to talk to him. He's explained how it happened, and there's nothing to say he's not telling the truth, but that doesn't mean he's not lying. Sheree says, I believe Pine. Take that for whatever it's worth. I know you do, Sheree. I know you do. So let's move on to this. Season 2, Volume 2 of the book series. The books have gone out to those guests. And in fact, a couple of them, Lucinda Hules' daughter, Deanna, and Helen Diamond's granddaughter, Holly Letson, have posted about getting their books. And even Holly says, I really like his coverage. I don't necessarily agree with the conclusions he came to regarding my grandmother's disappearance, but we really appreciate him, and he's been so helpful and everything. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. I think that the guests need to understand that I may not always agree with them. I realize that they've been living with these disappearances longer than I have, and I'm not here to change their minds. Sometimes I'm here to open their minds and inform them, but they're going to do what they're going to do. I'm going to continue to support them, even though sometimes I get crap from a couple of them, and some of you may know what I'm talking about. So we're not always going to agree, but I'm just not going to have opinions just because I like having opinions. I think just try to back it up with what I've experienced, what I've learned from all these other cases. So season 2, volume 2 has gone out to the guests for those episodes, those disappearances in that book. And it's available on Amazon.com, by the way, print form and ebook form. Season 2, volume 3 is being worked on right now. I anticipate it coming out in the next couple weeks. I'm excited about that. So that's how quickly these books will now be happening, given that I have somebody who's working on them. I think this guy does other things, but somebody who is responsible for the books. And I just get him the information and he puts them all together. D says, well, we can all agree, and some of us still don't believe it. Yeah. Next, what do I want to talk about? What do we got? 24 minutes. Okay. Next topic, mark this on your calendars. I had this talk today. I will be speaking at a university in Louisiana on October 12th. So what, 3 months from now? We got together on a date. This is a university that I was supposed to speak at before COVID hit. Had an opportunity to speak with a professor there today. We decided on that date. And there will be 2 classes that I will be speaking to. Both are an hour and 15 minutes long. I have a long presentation that I will have to tailor to that time frame. I hope to make it like an hour and then 15 minutes of questions, something like that. And I'm going to go there. I'm going to videotape it for future use. And we'll see how it goes. I'm going to have to put together a PowerPoint presentation using my computer. That should be fun. I've never done that before. So that's going to happen October 12th in Louisiana, but I'm not ready yet to reveal what school this is going to be. But she's very excited about it. I'm excited about it because I've been talking about doing this for so long, and it's finally good to get back to it. Coffee says, Ed, you literally mentioned the pond thing like a week or 2 before. What Coffee regarding Esther Westenbarger, or is that what you mean, Coffee? Please clarify that for me so I can expound on that. So once again, October 12th in Louisiana, looking forward to it. And I anticipate probably that I'll be doing some other speaking engagements that I will be lining up over like the next month to then happen also in October, November, some of that time. Going to go in there and try to educate some criminal justice majors about disappearances using Unfound disappearances as examples. D says, so you're going to Louisiana. I am going to Louisiana, D. That is true. Sheree says, sometimes I am wrong. And you're allowed to be wrong, Sheree. Next, Anthony at crimeblogger1983.blogspot.com was gracious to send me a couple screenshots of some of Gayla Schaper's family members who had nice things to say about the coverage of her disappearance that we did last year. They sent it to him. They were complimenting him, but obviously what he has done covering Gayla's disappearance, which is a very old one going back to the 1980s, and then him being on the program. So that was some good news. That was very nice of them to do that. Once again, sometimes I'm always a little confused on why. Of course, he wrote about Gayla Schaper's disappearance well before he was ever on Unfound to talk about it. And it's always interesting that then people he would think are following any information on their missing loved one, a missing family member, and then it takes all this time for them to realize that maybe we just need to advertise better. I mean, I'm not blaming the family members. I'm not blaming friends. It just shows, though, that we can always do more to publicize the cases that we've covered. Charlotte says, we're all wrong at one time or another. Cherie says, yeah. Charlotte says, yes. Let's move on to this. Given that this disappearance was brought up early in the program when it came to disappearances in which it seems people ran off, the FBI is now getting involved in the disappearances of Molly Miller and Colt Haynes. I'm just going to read this article so you can hear about it. Molly Miller and Colt Haynes disappeared 7 years ago. This is an article that just came out within the last couple of days. Molly and Colt disappeared 7 years ago after a car chase in Wilson, Oklahoma. The two were in the car with an individual named James Conn Nip when they led police on a high-speed chase into Love County, July 8th, 2013. So just over 8 years ago. That's when Paula Fielder, Miller's cousin, says Nip drove the car off the road and into the woods near Long Hollow and Oswalt Road in Love County before abandoning Haynes and Miller with the car in the woods. Molly and Colt called multiple people during the night to try and pick them up, Fielder said. You remember that Paula was the guest when we covered that disappearance way back in, 2019. The next morning, there were 4 individuals who were out searching for them, and they went to Conn's house to find out where they were. Nip denied being with them, but the individuals had Colt on the phone with them. Colt talked to Nip and told him, tell them where we are at so we can get out of here. The 4 individuals that day searched for Miller and Haynes for 4 hours before calling off the search. Molly's phone went dead around 9:39 a.m. Colt's phone went dead around 9:57 a.m. on July 8th, Fielder said. That's the last time anyone has spoken to either one of them. Miller's family declared her officially dead in January of this year, 2021. Fielder said she doesn't believe the Wilson Police Department at the time had the resources or manpower for this kind of investigation. They knew who Molly was, Fielder said. They didn't take this seriously. They took this as a runaway. In April of 2021, Fielder said an informant came to her with information about Miller's death. Information she brought to the FBI. The information was good enough that Fielder convinced them to move forward to the FBI, who opened up their own investigation into Miller's death in May. Miller is a native Chickasaw, so under the McGirt ruling, the FBI picked up the case. So because she is Native American, this is why the FBI, I guess, decided to get involved. Okay. There's no doubt in my mind that what we've been told and what the FBI has been told is true, and they have to follow through on the rest of this, Fielder said. Fielder said she believes, through what she's been told, that someone witnessed what happened to Miller and Haynes, and she believes there will be charges brought against someone this year in connection to their disappearances. The family is holding out onto hope this new information and a new, fresh set of eyes will finally give them the answers they've been seeking for 8 years. So, given that the last Unfound Now, at the end of June, I spoke about the FBI getting involved. Now we see another way the FBI can get involved if one of the missing is not Native American, as it seems Molly was. I don't remember Paul and I ever talking about that. And even if we had, I don't know if it would have ever gone into my mind, well, this is a way that the FBI could get involved. So I guess it is. And now I know that. This is still a very complex disappearance. It's hard to understand. I remember doing a map on this at the time. I think Paula and I went over the locations and everything fairly well. And it's still hard to understand how Molly and Colt were out there by themselves, but were lost. It's not like they were put, in to go the whole David Paulides route in some national forest. Just plunked down there, and they didn't know where they were, and they didn't know which way was north and south and everything else. I can understand they're maybe not totally sure, given that they weren't driving and it was dark and then it becomes light, but you just start walking. And you saw the area, even if where they were wasn't where Con Nip's car ended up, there wasn't it wasn't that thick a forest or anything. So this is all very confusing. I've heard that maybe Colt broke his ankle, which of course could complicate things. But it just seems to me that nobody seems to debate the idea that the two of them were alone out there all night. And still they went missing. And it seems they were trying to get back to civilization and couldn't do that. One of the darndest things we've covered on Unfound. And I know that some people believe that after this phone call, people went back out to where they were. Well, what's confusing to me is, if these guys knew, of course, Con would know where they were. Well, that means there's a road there. They drove out there in the car. Why didn't they just follow the tracks back to civilization or follow this path? And I don't know. There just seems to be, and there have been all sorts of theories and rumors and crazy stories regarding this, that still nobody denies that Colt and Molly were by themselves, were alive, were fine for many, many hours into that next day. So it's a stumper. Shree says, I'm surprised that the FBI is just now getting involved. You heard it. I'll have to look up the McGirt ruling, MCGIRT. I don't know what that is. But obviously it says Miller is a native Chickasaw. So under the McGirt ruling, the FBI picked up the case. So I'm guessing this has to do with Native Americans and crime, something like that. Sheree says, never mind the whole internal affairs issue. Yeah. Again, drugs make things unpredictable. That's true. That could be a bigger role in this maybe than we realize, Sheree. D, well, at least we hope. So I don't like running into Con's family at Walmart lots. It's hard for me to keep my mouth shut. So you live in that area, D. I didn't know that. So you run into them. It's interesting. Shree says, Allison Watterson is another lost but not lost disappearance, remains found under a blackberry bush. Don't know that one, Sheree. So that's new information regarding Colt and Molly. We'll see if the FBI can make any headway in it. As I stated, in that Unfound now, the most recent one regarding Luis Davia, who is still missing. In fact, somebody sent me a new video that his family did with a local TV station. It's been 100 days since he went missing. Getting the FBI involved is not a cure-all. They'll be involved. You hope they do a great job. They certainly have the power. Certainly, I think when the FBI shows up, people kind of a little have a little more fear in them than if just it's a small town detective or somebody like that. That certainly helps, but still they are not a cure-all when it comes to disappearances. As we know, we got thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of disappearances, and nothing's been solved. And we have to remember the FBI still hasn't found Jimmy Hoffa. So there's that. She's talking to D. No point in making your life miserable. Yes. So that's all I really have have on the agenda for tonight. So let's move on to this Friday's disappearance. This Friday, we'll be covering the disappearance of Randy Doran, Doran. And this is a disappearance that we're not sure what the exact date is. But for sure, he got in contact with his family during April of 1978. We have 2 interviews for this. So yes, we're going back 43 years. And we have 2 interviews for this episode. First, I spoke to Randy's sister, Valerie, who was 9 months younger than Randy. So she was about 20 years old when this happened. And I also got to speak to a new blogger. So, of course, I just mentioned Anthony from crimeblogger1983.blogspot.com. He's been on the program, what? 4 times? 5 times? 4 times? It's either 4 or 5. And then we have Heather Grotman, who has been on the program 3 times from the Lost and Found blogs. I think Anthony was first on for Tammy Leppert, and then Evelyn Hartley, Lucera Sarabia, Gayla Schaper. Maybe I'm missing one more in there. Heather Grotman was on for Christine Wheeler and Dale Kerstetter, and maybe one more. So, just doing this off the top of my head. But we're going to have a new blogger on here on the program on Friday because she has done some very good work regarding Randy's disappearance. I know her full name, but we do not say her full name for the episode. Her first name is Barbara, and she has been writing at the Underground Mysteries blog for quite a while. And in fact, her real job is doing DNA work. So we talk a little bit about that. But then, of course, mostly we talk about the work that she has done trying to figure out what happened to Randy Doran. And so before Friday, I would urge you to go check out her website. In fact, I've already linked to it in the group on Facebook, on the page on Facebook. Now, Nylene Marshall, thank you, Kathy, for Heather Grotman. Look at you, Kathy. Look at you. Thank you. Randy had a troubled childhood, and he was in California. He was a Marine, got honorably discharged due to a back problem. Could not really do well in California, was getting in fights and all these things. He decided he was going to get out of California, and he was going to hitchhike to Florida to see his grandmother. It would be his mother's mother. We never got there. And it seems. And instead, he made it to New Orleans and stopped. And once he got there, he had called his aunt, who he's very close to. Her name is Sandy, to say, hey, I made it. I'm here. And there was something that he might have mentioned that said he might have been working on a boat. Of course, the Mississippi River is right there. And then shortly after that, the same aunt, Sandy, got this postcard from Randy, saying everything's going well, say hi to the family for me. And that was that. And that was in April of 1978. The family still has those postcards, and Barbara has them on her site, and I'm hoping she sends the files to me so that I can post them on all of the social media that we have for Unfound and also on the website, theunfoundpodcast.com. Well, after that postcard in 1978, nobody heard from Randy again. And in talking to his sister, it doesn't seem like it fully registered to the family that there was anything wrong with that. You have to remember, 1978. The distance between California and Louisiana, Louisiana might have very well just have well been in the Middle East. Things seem so much closer these days. Then out of nowhere, in 1982, this same aunt gets a postcard that is of a very famous restaurant in the French Quarter on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. And it's postmarked from a city that's very close to New Orleans. The issue, though, is it's not from Randy. The postcard is not from Randy. It's from somebody else. It looks like a Candy Lewis, a Caudill Lewis, a Candace Lewis, something like that. But it says, hey, I'm sorry I lost your address. I've been meaning to write you. Everything's great here. I got engaged for Christmas, which everybody takes to mean 1981. And I have to go now. Just wanted to, and that was that. And it signed this person. Well, it seems the aunt, in getting this postcard, thought it was from Randy, even though Randy is not named in the postcard. It doesn't say anything about him, and it's surely not his writing. But she thought it was from Randy, gave it to the family. So we go over that. It's a little stumper. The big issue is that nobody's ever come forward to tell Sandy, oh, I was the one who wrote that. Now, fortunately, Sandy's dead now, but nobody came forward to say, oh, yeah, I was the one who wrote that postcard. But Sandy took it to mean that Randy wrote that postcard. But if it was somebody, the only type of person that would write Sandy a postcard from the New Orleans area is somebody who knew her. Well, then why is it when she got the postcard, saw the name who signed it and said, I don't know this person. This must be from Randy. It's a stumper. And he's been missing ever since. You'll hear Barbara talk how she's done social security number searches for him. There's no records of him ever working anywhere after 1978. So that will be this Friday's episode. These old disappearances, get back to the 1980s and 70s, man, they get tough. So you can look that up. The name of the episode is, probably will not surprise you, Puzzle from a Postcard. Instead, or Answer on a Postcard, which is a common idiom, Puzzle from a Postcard. Once again, Randy Doran, Doran, April 1978, interviewed his sister Valerie and the blogger Barbara from Underground Mysteries. So I hope you will check that out. Marcus says that's odd, the fact that it wasn't Randy who sent the card. I agree. It will all be explained on Friday, Marcus. As you know, this is just a short summary. So that's this Friday. So that's about it. We are getting toward 11 o'clock Eastern time. So what did we talk about tonight? Not a lot of disc golf going on, getting a lot of rain, maintaining my weight, looking good. Had some thunderstorms, serious thunderstorms roll through the area today. Check out the YouTube channel Building Integrity if you want to find out more about the condo that collapsed in Miami. As you're watching it, keep in mind this is very much like disappearances, how disappearances are. If you are a family member of a missing person watching this, please contact me. unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Talked about the Shawn Antill poll, Mary Lyle, Erika Lloyd, Rebecca Gary, Dr. Telesco, Tom Brown, Season 2, Volume 2, Gayla Schaper, and I read you that article regarding Molly Miller and Colt Haynes. That's all I got. Heck of a show tonight, if I may say so myself, but I'm a little biased. Do not forget to hit the thumbs up button before you leave. Patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. PayPal.me/Unfound Podcast. Eric, thank you for the super chat donation tonight. Greatly appreciated. Thank you all for watching. You'll hear me on Friday. Some of you will see me on Sunday. And then we'll do this all again next Wednesday. Good night. Keep your head on a swivel.